It's 5:05 p.m. and this is capital planning on whatever day today is.
March 27th.
27th, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I know.
I was about to say the 25th, so I'm glad you. I don't have my little piece of paper, but this is an open meeting, so you may be recorded, will be recorded. And
Your
that's
voice
where
and
we're at.
image.
Thank
Yes.
you. You've probably heard that before.
I may have a few times.
Once or twice.
Okay. What do we have on our agenda? I'm assuming fire truck.
Yes. So fire truck, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background. And Chief is here as well. So we went through and looked at what do we have in public safety mitigation, which
Yep.
is 857,000. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I need 262,000 of that for the budget for police that we fund every year. That leaves us with 595,000 that I currently have that could be appropriated from public safety mitigation. We have an outstanding invoice to Highland Commons, as we mentioned. That is just over 600,000. I think it's 644. Sorry, too many numbers floating around in my head. That one I don't remember exactly. But we don't know if that's going to come in before May 1st. So I started putting some ideas for a potential plan B, C, D, E, F in place in case we don't get all of the public safety money to fund the fire truck.
So if we don't get it all by May 1st and we vote this plan, and then you already, I think, answered my question, huh? And then we get all the money on May 5th, we can't change the plan once
We
it's been
cannot
voted.
legally appropriate money we do not have in hand.
Right. But can
So-
we change the plan after we voted it? Can we vote one plan and say, unless in the next 3 days?
No, but there's a way that we may be able to write it that says in the motion, it's from public safety mitigation or something like, and there's a number of options, free cash, stabilization, lease purchase, borrowing. So I kind of want to lay out all of those potential options for you because you really have to pick one.
Stabilization fund,
Capital stabilization?
if I have to.
Well,
But you can also say, at the point the money comes in, the money will return to the capital stabilization. It's all in the motion.
Right. Well, interestingly enough, you say that we have 307,000 that we were recommending to put into capital stabilization. That is for the roof. Or we're thinking about using that next year for the roof. We talked about the fact that we're not going to have all that 1.1 million in free cash for the BMS roof. So we're probably going to have to look to capital stabilization. But what you could do is you could appropriate that 307, which I just did the math, would bring you to 902. So that's good. That gets us over the 880. With the understanding, and I'm just trying to think, we would have to then, I'm just trying to think of the mechanism of how we would do it. We'd have to actually defund that article and then refund it out of public safety mitigation in the fall. It's a little messy, but we may be able to.
I think, how
Do
many
it.
stabilizations do we have? And
2.
what are their amounts?
Well, 3. There's capital stabilization, regular stabilization, and public safety mitigation stabilization.
Just take it out of the regular stabilization.
I wouldn't advise that only because that affects our bond rating. So we want to keep our stabilization numbers about where they're at. So we're at about 1.2
Correct.
in our general stabilization. We have a budget of 16 million. So the general recommendation is around 5% for your stabilization. So if I do the math, we're in good shape there, and that helps with our bond rating.
Yeah.
So when you
Are we
cut,
going out to bond anything?
Maybe the roof.
no, but we have to get we do get a rating every few years. That's just a standard, thing that we do as part of our process. We may not be able, we are doing, we have a debt exclusion out on the roof, and we have the Tohoto debt payment. So, you know, and should we bond anything else, we do want to make sure we're in good shape.
What about public safety mitigation? Would it be
So-
public safety mitigation stabilization?
That's the
Would it
same,
be-
that's the 857.
Oh, okay. So that is
Yeah.
that stabilization word should have been on there the whole time.
Technically, yes, because as going through past warrants, you created a stabilization account it was either last year or the year before town meeting, which automatically allows that public safety money to go into that account for future appropriation. It's always been called public safety mitigation funds, but it's the same. It's one
Okay.
of the same. So
Hold the town meeting open till the last week in June.
Oh, that's a trick, yeah.
I don't know that we want to do that for a couple of reasons. I don't know if that would. I've not done that before.
We have done that before.
Okay. That might give an opportunity to add additional articles onto the
No,
warrant.
because
Okay.
you're not, the warrant would be cast in stone.
Okay.
The only thing is, the warrant articles, you talk it over with the moderator.
Yeah.
Would we have that Highland Commons mitigation by June?
Hopefully.
Okay. We don't have like a due date.
Let me see what I believe it's an FY23 invoice. Does everybody pay their invoices when they're supposed to? I wish I could say yes.
I was going to say not in my world.
They haven't been late, though they've been very good about making their payments, but I don't know that I can't really make a guarantee. So Mary actually put this nice little spreadsheet together for me of their payments. They've paid pretty timely. It looks like they've paid most of their invoices within 4 to 6 weeks. Their invoice went out on March 8th. So could it come in April? It could. And actually that invoice, I had the wrong number. It's $677,192.29. So what I can do is I can follow up with them and see if I can get a sense of when that payment's going to be made. Make a nice little, hey, just calling to say hi, you know. I can play the new card for a little while and just introduce myself and say, you know, just curious when you might be making your payment. I'll find a nice way to ask.
Well, tell them you need to know for town meeting.
Sure, absolutely.
They're adults. We've been through this before.
Yep.
So that 670,000 that's coming with this payment.
Yep. So that's 677,192.29, and that was billed on 3/8.
Does 200 and so I know that we need of the money that we have in that stabilization account at the moment. 262 goes to operating budget.
Correct.
Next year, will that 262 have to come out of this payment that we're getting in? Do we only get paid once a year?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. Okay. So that 262 should be sort of
They're spending it
theoretically
really
taken
too
out.
fast.
Huh?
They're really spending it too fast.
The 262 or the whole box?
The whole box.
Yeah. I just want to
Yeah.
make sure we cover all our bills that we know of before we empty our box.
So if we did, so it's 857 right now and a little bit of change, plus 677 minus 262 for this year, minus it might go to like 265 next year because there's a cost of living increase. That leaves us with $1,007,000. So that still does leave us with, it's a lot, but it leaves us with $120,000. Plus we get $100,000 also in the fall, November from Riverbridge. So that would leave us with
Like
a
300,000.
little over 200,000, like 225.
left
But
in
then
that
we would
account.
get another $600,000 payment in the spring of 24.
Now we're also paying though for our vehicles. Police, right? Police
So
getting a car.
I had the vehicles coming out of free cash. That's how I'm kind of used to doing it. Are you talking about the police car itself?
I
Yeah,
am.
usually we take
Usually
it out
we
of
pay-
public safety.
You do
Yeah.
public safety, okay.
I mean, it's in the grand scheme of things. I don't think I've ever said this in my life, but it's only 45 grand.
Right.
But still, now we've taken our 220 extra and brought it back down to,
Right.
180.
So the way I had written this plan at this time, because you had the free cash, so 30% of our free cash gives you 923,000. The plan as it's written, excluding the fire truck, comes to 911,900. So because you had the free cash, I wrote it as if the truck was coming out of free cash. If you prefer it to come out of public safety mitigation, we can make that change.
Is this number correct, 45,000 for the Tahoe?
Yes.
That's awful low.
It's much cheaper than the Ford. I think it's 6,000 plus he just got an email that there's another 4,000 going in
Right.
for the Ford. So it was another, I believe, $10,000 for the Explorer.
Wow.
I can double check
Yeah.
with him, but that's my understanding based on what he put in.
But that's my understanding of the pricing between the Tahoes and the Explorers.
I thought the price was more like 60 grand
Eh,
for
was-
Tahoe.
that was
was the-
that was the fire chief
That was the
last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope you like your car.
It's a nice
I don't know if it's the car.
car.
Well, that's the argument over the Tahoe, right? Because they're less expensive. They retain their resale value,
Right.
but they're not hybrids. So there's
Oh,
your argument,
Difference.
right?
And of that $60,000 for the fire department, I don't know how much of that went into the lights or the radios in the car.
A bunch.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
I was
But
gonna say,
this
Yeah.
includes the outfitting. Yes, I was there today. He says 45,163, and I'm just gonna say that includes equipment,
No.
etc.
No, I don't
No,
think so.
that's
Lights
listed
and
Or
separately.
he's moving it from
Oh,
another
no.
vehicle.
Never mind. Maybe it does.
Yeah, I believe he's reusing the lights that he had in the other cruisers.
Could I also get your name?
Seth, S-E-T-H, Seth.
I thought it was a reuse. Yeah, that sounds right to me.
I think
Yeah,
from
just-
Leominster.
Actually from Sterling.
Okay. I
Talk
was-
to the
went through
chief
Sterling
again,
today.
because he was
Do you have
talking
a
about
last
something
name?
that
Porter, P-O-R-T-E-R.
it's about $4,000 or $5,000 more. So
P-O-R-T?
I'm not sure.
Hmm.
ER?
Okay.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be in our Google folder?
Don't know.
Yes. I don't have access to it either. So
He says, I said, can you confirm the Tahoe price is still 45,163? He says, yes, I was there today. And then I just said that includes equipment, etc., reusing from another cruiser? Question mark. And he just hasn't written back quite yet, so I will let you know.
okay.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know that I would recommend taking more out of mitigation if you're going to use it for the fire truck.
I would agree.
I think this is a bit of an extraordinary circumstance because you're trying to save the 15 to 20%. So you do have it available in free cash. I would think it would make more sense to put that funding towards the truck.
So I have a question about this thing in front of us, this quote.
Yes.
So it says that there are 2 payments over 2 years with a interest rate of 5.48. Is that
Yes.
5.48 in with the truck, the quote of the truck? Are we actually spending 880 total, or are we spending 880 plus 5.48?
880 plus. So this is just an option. I was just looking into
Oh, okay.
what a lease purchase would be if we wanted to do short-term financing.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it's not great. we're in some type of bizarre bell curve right now where the markets are very unstable, viewing the U.S. as unstable in the short term, but stable in the long term. So believe it or not, short-term borrowing rates are actually higher than 10-year borrowing rates right now. It's a weird inverse curve, he described it, some yoke curve. I'm not an econ major, so I can't tell you exactly what that means, but basically if you were to finance it for 2 years, the rate is high. Normally you would see a much lower rate on a 2-year borrowing, but I asked just to see. So what that means is you pay $73,000 almost in interest over 2 years. If you do a 5-year, which I had him quote out a couple weeks ago, you pay just under $90,000 in interest over 5 years. So obviously the better option is to pay it directly from the mitigation funding and not pay interest. But just putting options out there. The other thing you can do is a short-term borrowing. You're going to hit the same interest rates that you're hitting for a lease purchase because they're going out to the same market, which are the banks. Yeah. So a lease purchase goes and they put it out to bid, and you bid against the banks and they come back with interest rates. This is an estimated interest rate based on literally what the market is today. He did say it's volatile. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's 5.5, sometimes it's 5.3, sometimes it's 5.7. It literally, it's fluctuating a lot right now. It's just not very stable. There's too much instability going on in the United States market at this time, which we're aware of.
Yeah.
So, but long term we are stable. So that's why your 5-year quote. Normally, you would see a huge difference in how much you'd pay in interest between a 2-year lease and a 5-year lease, and here you're seeing a difference of $18,000. So, I don't know that either one of them are really worth it. A borrowing is going to get you about the same. So then you're looking at, do you look at free cash, stabilization? We talked a little bit about ARPA. My concern is in tying up ARPA funds. If we tie up $300,000, say, in ARPA, we can't use or touch any of that money until we were to appropriate the mitigation funds at fall town meeting. So that would tie our hands on using ARPA funding for about 6 months. Yes.
Are we having a fall town meeting?
I think we're going to need to, for a couple of reasons.
Uh-oh.
I'm sitting down. Go ahead.
Oh, did you want to stand? Is that better?
No, I'm
My
curious.
understanding is typically there's been a fall town meeting here. Is that not the case?
Not on a regular basis.
Okay.
We've had a few, yeah.
We've had some.
Yeah.
I did threaten people last year because last year we had the primary and then the November election. And for me, any election starts 45 days before the election.
Right.
It used to be, 15, 20 days. But now you just get through one election, you have a week, and then you're in another election.
Right. Well, there are a couple of bylaws that are in the works that weren't ready for May town meeting that we'd like to not wait a year on. One has to do with soils. There's also a potential modification to the River Bridge development agreement that was not ready for May town meeting because that negotiation is still ongoing. And if we have to do something for funding for this, that would necessitate a fall town meeting. There may have been a couple other things that aren't coming to mind at the moment.
Okay,
So there were a couple of things.
okay.
So what we would do is have probably it would be like a late November town meeting after free cash would be certified. How does that line up with your?
This fall,
You don't have a presidential,
there's
but
no election.
there's no state either, right? Yeah.
Right.
No, the next election after the town election in May would be the presidential next spring.
Okay.
Next year we would have 4.
Ugh. That sounds like fun.
So I'm curious about capital stabilization.
Yes.
How much we have in there now. My understanding would be 125 from 2 years ago, plus 197 last year, plus this 300.
Sounds about right, and I didn't grab that piece of paper, but hold on, I think I have it in my email here. And that would be an email from June. Nope, not that one. That's opioid stabilization. You know, I had a weird feeling I should have grabbed that piece of paper in the midst of everything I grabbed, and I did not.
No worries.
So we cannot use ARPA money for this purchase?
It would take a substantial amount of what remains in ARPA. I mean, we can have that conversation with the select board, but my understanding is that this is what that mitigation funding has been really designated for, if you will. I can go back and grab that number if you want.
So adding up the three numbers I just spouted out is that will have, once our funding is put into it from this year, we will have $625,000 in capital stabilization. So we could finance some portion
From there.
from there and then potentially get reimbursed from mitigation when mitigation funds come in. If we want it.
Put that in the warrant article.
Yeah.
And the warrant articles don't have to be written till before May 1.
Mm-hmm.
She said page 10.
So we could have two ready to go.
Or one sort of lengthy one.
Option A, option B.
No, you have to have a definitive number.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because when I do the recap sheet, I have to say a
There we go.
specific amount.
Yeah.
I can't say sorta, maybe,
Kind of about.
yeah.
So the balance in capital stabilization, all right, I'll give you the exact balances. How's this? Regular stabilization, it has actually grown because it has interest. So it was 1.2 with interest. It's grown to $1,413,096.05. Capital stabilization is $339,678.16. And then the public safety stabilization that we keep talking about is the exact number is $853,129.62. I'm gonna save that on my desktop.
And we're getting 303 or 330?
307.
307. Oh, so neither of those two numbers I just brought up. Okay, good.
Let's see. Oh, no, that's not what I wanted to do. Why is that not downloading right?
So I think the question would be, how much do we want to... Let me back up. Do we want to buy the fire truck now? If we buy the fire truck now, do we want to plan on 100% of that $880,000 coming out of mitigation, public safety mitigation?
You could do it that way, and then just what was going to come out of mitigation, you could just take that out of free cash. It's 6 of one, half dozen of another.
Well, we could elect to have it all come out of mitigation, but we don't have enough in mitigation at the moment to pay for it.
Right.
So we have to either have the extra money, this year's money, come in, or we have to have Plan B, which is 50% of the fire truck from mitigation and 50% of the fire truck from free cash or from from capital stabilization or something
Amen.
along those lines. We can't afford 50, but we can't afford 50%.
It doesn't make sense to pay interest $70,000.
I
Fair,
totally
fair.
agree.
That's outrageous.
Yep. Yep.
Waste of money, yeah.
Yep. I always think interest is. always
So
too much.
if we can find money to pay in cash, might as well just do it,
I agree.
unless we cancel the whole thing.
Well,
Yeah, that's the other option.
the nice thing too is, and I'll ask Janelle, and I actually already have an email out to her. Can we write an if this then this, if not then this kind of warrant article, or can we just wait until the last minute to put the motion in, which would give the dollar amount? So there's a couple different things that I'm looking at with her. So you basically would have 591,000 in public safety mitigation. We're not counting Highland Commons. And you had 307,000 that was slated to go into capital stabilization this year. That's $898,000. So if you appropriate it as public safety mitigation funds or
Public safety and capital stabilization.
Right.
correct, a combination of both. So I'm just looking at this. So this is not, so what did we put here? So actually, and so since it's, and so it actually would be free cash that was going into capital stabilization.
So instead of filling capital stabilization and then spending capital stabilization, we just wouldn't fill.
Correct.
Capital
That would be
stabilization.
the easiest thing to do. Take the money that was set to go into capital stabilization and put it toward the fire truck.
Okay. And then my second question would be, then would we reimburse ourselves out of public safety when that money came in? Is that possible?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. So we actually, I think the way that this would work, and this is a little weird, but you're technically using the capital stabilization funding as a hold in order to be able to enter into a contract for the fire truck, because you have to show that you have the funds on hand, right?
Correct.
We can only legally pay 1/3 up front for that
That's
fire
true.
truck. How far out is the bill? Did you say 31 months?
Depending on when the order is done, it could be up to 30. It's anywhere from 19 months to 31 months right now, depending on, you know, which manufacturer we go with, which I'm still working on trying to bring that price down as low as I can by the trade-in and looking at the different options that I have with the apparatus. But depending on which way we go, it's anywhere from 19 to 31 months. Most of them seem to be right at about the 25-month period.
Okay. So
So either way, that money would be in the funds when it came to pay for it.
it would be. The problem is we can't enter into the contract
Right.
to buy it unless we have the funding secured. So I would have to work with legal counsel to see how we would do that. I'm thinking what you would do then is at fall town meeting, you would basically rescind the capital stabilization money, or you take the 307, you put it into capital stabilization, and then you would appropriate 307 from public safety mitigation. But there's a way to do it. I have to think a little more on the mechanism of how
Now,
to do it.
1/3 would be down payment, or we have to pay 100%?
No,
We can't,
1/3, we
just
can't
1/3.
pay 100%.
No.
Because the
okay.
truck's not built yet, so it would just, that money would sit in our account until the truck was actually completed and signed off on and met the specifications, and then we would finish, which we're looking at a year or two before that truck comes in.
So, you know, the other thing is, we might be able to just amend the article to pay it all from mitigation money, and then have another article to put the 307 into capital stabilization
In the next.
in the next town
Yep.
meeting. Right, which, if it doesn't happen in the fall for some reason, you do it in the spring.
Yeah, because it's
So-
still, we're still not going to be
Correct.
anywhere near the truck being ready.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
So I make a motion that we vote to approve a new fire engine, tanker truck thingy,
Bumper truck.
pumper truck. It's to be paid out of public safety mitigation and capital stabilization at this moment in time.
Yes, and actually, so it would be public safety mitigation and technically free cash.
Oh, and free cash, sorry.
Free cash, okay.
Yes, free cash.
Okay, I'll second that, so.
Okay. Any discussion? So, in the discussion, because these numbers have been flying back and forth, that's
Yeah.
the 307 from free cash that would be going into stabilization,
Yep.
and then the remainder coming out of public safety.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns before we vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Saul's aye.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now,
Appreciate it.
how much do you think you can get for the current truck?
I'm hoping more than what we typically have gotten in the past. Typically in the past, those trucks have gone for about $25,000 as a trade-in. And I say that's the last time that I had a truck that I traded in during a purchase was it was pre-COVID. And there's only usually a couple companies that actually take those to resell them. With the way in which the market is right now and the delays on trucks and stuff, my hope is that there's more value in that truck. I hope to get a better idea on Wednesday. I have a meeting with one of the manufacturers to kind of look at trucks and kind of talk to them about one of the bids they provided me, and also to look at that truck to see what kind of value we're talking about that we can get on a trade-in on that.
And that money would go towards this, so.
You'll see that money will come off the price of the truck. My hope
Yeah.
is that right now the 880 is going to be, we're not going to hit the 880. It's actually going to be less than that. I just can't say what that price is going to be, only because it's very volatile right now, and I don't know what other price increases will be. And with the different engines and the transmissions that are out there and some of the issues they're having with trying to get them with the trucks and stuff like that, I'm not sure what my final price is going to be on the truck.
I would like to amend my motion now that we voted. I'd like to amend it to include that our current truck goes away.
I can guarantee you our current truck
I
is going
really
away.
appreciate that,
Yep.
but I want to make sure it's written down.
I'm good with it. I have no issue with that whatsoever. I just want to guarantee to you that I'm not increasing the fleet.
Thank you.
It'll be remaining the
But
same.
when
restricting-
is it gonna go away, now or when you
No,
get a new?
No.
not until
no.
that truck comes in, and that's
So
one of the reasons why I brought it forward right now was because I know it had been talked about for next year, but that big price increase that was coming and the delay that we have with that growing, if you will, a production line that we have that could be out to 30-something months. That was one of the reasons why I just wanted to bring it forward, and I appreciate the fact that you guys have been supportive and working with me to be able to procure the truck as soon as possible. But that truck will be here until that one's built, and it will go away.
So
Perfect.
it's still operational?
Yes. Yep.
And you're actually working with a second company
Yes.
on a potential price that might be a little bit lower.
Nice.
So
Yes.
it's
Yep.
not going to be higher than 880.
No.
It may be
That's all you're getting.
lower.
Yes, I am not coming back for any more money. My
No.
plan is to make this work, and my hope is to be able to let people know that it's going to be, the price will actually be a little bit less than that.
Right. So we'll have a better idea a little bit closer to town meeting
Correct.
of where
Fantastic.
we're at on that.
Cool.
Okay.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
No,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Save us some money.
Yes.
We like that.
Right.
So then the only other one that we haven't discussed or voted on, it would be the playground renovations for rec. They did get an updated or actual quote for $172,035. That's a tough one because I don't see where that funding would come from in '24 at this time. It hadn't really been part of your plan kind of all along.
Right.
So, and I know that was due to a bit of confusion because they thought since they had it in last year, it was already kind of being considered this year. I know the recommendation was made to go back and look at CPA funds for funding there. So that was made to them. If the CPA funding for whatever reason is something that doesn't work out, I would say it could be looked at again in '25 as a potential project, but I just don't really see it financially fitting into the FY24 capital plan, unfortunately. I don't know how you all feel about that.
Okay.
I'd still really like them to go back to CPA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I can convey that,
I understand that.
Is that something that the selectmen would like to use ARPA funds?
That's a possibility. We can ask them.
Or next year, ask rec to choose one.
Yeah. Because they did get the shade pavilion.
Right, the Shade Pavilion is on the town meeting warrant.
Yep.
For 123.
23?
50. Nope, I updated it.
150,000.
150. And notice I took off under CPA the,
It was initially 123. You're
Yes.
correct,
Okay.
Anna.
Yeah.
But then they said, well, what about the installation? And they wanted to put some shrubs in and make it pretty.
I like pretty. It works for me.
How about the tennis court?
That's being fixed this year.
that's
It
moving
is,
forward.
because we
so.
voted that in, what, a year ago, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Well,
we did a bid.
everything's starting to slowly start up again.
Yeah, yeah.
We put that out to bid. We did receive one bid that came in over budget. Came in at 176, just shy of 177. The select board did vote to make up that difference in ARPA funding because the budget was only 150. But again, not an unreasonable price considering how much everything has increased out there.
It's incredible.
And we'd like to get it done. So to me, ARPA is a great use of matching funds to be able to push a project over the finish line when you are just short a little bit of funding to do it. So they've agreed to do that. We have drafted the contract. It's been sent out and it's with the company right now being reviewed. And the contract does have a June 30th deadline in it for the construction, provided there are no, unforeseen delays in supply chain. So I mean, I have to put that out there. If they can't get the materials, we will have to do an extension. But they have agreed to, provided all goes well, get it done by June 30.
There's no microelectronics in that, so there's no excuse for.
It's mostly paving and striping and some netting and that
Right.
type of equipment, hoops. So hopefully it's nothing that can't be found. Fingers crossed. And it's I keep saying their name wrong. Lazaro.
Oh, Lazaro. Yeah.
A very well-known,
Reputable.
Yes.
reputable
Paving company.
paving
Yeah.
company.
Right.
Yep.
Cool.
So if that's how you like things to stand, then your proposed capital plan to town meeting would be $911,900 in free cash and $880,000 with the possibility of going down a little in public safety mitigation / free cash that was going into capital stabilization. And that is your FY24 capital plan.
Shouldn't you note to see the community preservation money too?
Yep. There's also 595 in community preservation. So they have their own articles. That's the only reason that I didn't have them listed. And I would need you all, if you could, to vote on the CPA articles because they have a capital recommendation that falls under the CPA. Did you?
I think we've voted
Did you
several
take the
times
vote?
on
We've
that.
already voted
Yeah.
to accept everything.
Yeah.
You're right. I think I had that. I just want to make sure I have it in here in the.
I think the 72 Carter Street number has gone down. And then the Shade Pavilion for 150, and then the community garden fencing for 45,000.
So I just don't have what your earlier votes were on community preservation.
We were unanimous for all three.
Okay, so is that 3-0? Because Janet's just a
Yes, that's
advisory
3-0,
member?
yes.
Okay,
And if anybody ever wants to join, and we can get Barry to sign him in,
sure.
we need a 5th member.
All right, so that is 72 Carter was 3-0, and then there is the.
Has the Finance
Shade
Committee
Pavilion.
also approved these numbers?
Oh, shoot, that didn't work. The Finance Committee will vote Wednesday. They had Tim give them a presentation and clarify some questions last Wednesday, but the conversation really turned to the school budget, so they did not have an opportunity to take a vote. They will finish their votes on Wednesday, but they asked all their questions and seemed comfortable with the
With the response?
information they received. Yep.
where does the school stand right now?
So after a 5-hour finance meeting on Wednesday night, which I did get home at 1:00 in the morning, we had a lot of robust conversation about what to do. It's a real challenge. So in the end, the FinCom took a vote to recommend a 4% increase in taxes to help offset the school budget. That still leaves approximately $740,000 in a deficit for what the school has requested, because the school has asked for they finally voted, so we now have their final numbers. They requested a 9% increase for Tohoto and a 29% increase for Berlin Memorial.
Jesus.
The Berlin Memorial number went so high because they had a number of out-of-district students that came into the district in March. So, literally a few weeks ago. And that out-of-district tuition alone is over $600,000. So that is why that number jumped so high for BMS. What's been put forth at this time is to fully fund Tohoto. That way you're not causing any issues with Boylston, and to basically look at taking it to the voters and having them decide whether they want to do any additional tax increase to fund the deficit that would be at BMS.
Are you talking an override?
Nope, it would be we have the funding because we have excess levy, so it just requires a town meeting vote. However, to get to the numbers that the school is requesting for their budget would require a 10% almost increase in taxes. I believe it comes to 9.7%. So it's a huge number. You're talking that translates to somewhere around $950 to $1,000 a year on the average single-family home that's valued at $558,000, which is what the state values our average single-family home at in the town of Berlin. At the 4% rate alone, that's about somewhere between a $525 and a $550 increase. So you'd be talking almost doubling that to get to the 10% to fill their deficit. It's very challenging. I understand that a lot of that is driven by mandated costs. We've been speaking with our state legislators and explaining to them that the state needs to pick up more of this bill. There is some extraordinary funding that the governor filed for as a supplemental budget to FY23. BBRSD has applied for that funding. That actually can be used to prepay for FY24 tuition, so it would help offset some of the issue if they receive it. But if they receive what they've asked for, it's only about $160,000. So it does not fully offset that $700,000 deficit. I think it's really needs to be up to the voters to decide how they want to handle it. FinCom tried to meet them partway by going beyond the usual 2.5% to 4%.
How are we in relation to our minimum payment
You mean state minimum spending?
for Berlin? Yeah.
All the schools are above state minimum contribution, but you only have a few towns that are below it, and they're pretty impoverished towns in the state. So I think there's only a couple that are below state minimum contribution spending.
I know,
levels.
but will this budget then put us under the minimum? We're considered a wealthy town.
Right.
That's a problem.
It's a little tricky. So because these are state mandated costs, it's really not, and they're out of district tuition, it's really not impacting their overall per student spending dollar amount, because they're very specific to certain students that have high needs. So, you know, minimum school spending, I don't know exactly everything that goes into that calculation to determine that. I mean, I can tell you we're over it now. Adding more to the budget will just increase how much we're over it by.
Well, it looks at what you have for free cash, what you have for cash reserves. I've been on the school committee.
Yep.
I've been a selectman. I've been a treasurer.
So, yeah, there are a lot
Sometimes
of
you wanna
factors
cry.
that go into it. Oh, no, it's not easy. And I just worry,
It's how many houses you have that are done after 1945.
so.
What's the state of your housing? I mean, there are a lot of factors that you wouldn't think of, but that go into the state calculation.
But, you know, the free cash that we have is a one-time. I mean,
That's a one-time.
Yeah, we're not gonna see that year over year. And, you know, I think the biggest concern that I have is if we don't fund the special education, they have to make cuts in other areas because that's mandated funding. So that has an impact, obviously. But if we fully fund the request, that's a 9.7% increase to the taxpayers of Berlin, which is huge. And we have a population that is 1/3 senior on fixed incomes. We have a high use of the food pantry here in town, and I have real concerns about pricing people out of being able to live in this community. We're not unique in this problem. Other
That
cities
is
and
true.
towns are going through this as well. Our state reps echoed that they've heard from many of their other communities, and they're pushing for a long-term solution at the state. Doesn't help us this year much, but they're trying the best they can. They've heard us loud and clear, you know, and that's really the best we can do.
The state had a surplus of billions of dollars. Where did money go?
Oh, come on. I got $300 in a check.
Oh, you did? Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they gave a portion of it out back to whoever. They did prorated to how you paid it.
Okay.
I mean, I have, you know, my own ideas. I think they should use marijuana sales tax to fund more education, but, you know, I don't make the rules at the state level. So I just, you know, they take in 20% sales tax on recreational marijuana, and they only give 3% back to the local communities. That's 17% that the state's taking, and they've collected over $4 billion in revenues from recreational marijuana since
Really?
2018.
They should give it back to communities, yeah.
But again, I don't make the rules at the state level. I have my thoughts and, you know, penny for your thoughts kind of thing, I guess.
I know.
So we're trying. You know, we're still having conversations where we're just trying to see if there's any way we can meet in the middle, trying to get creative. Can we create an in-district program that would be cheaper? Looking at any options that are on the table to see what we can do. But Boylston is in a better situation than we are. They've had some commercial growth. They have a FedEx facility and some other projects in town that they can raise taxes by 4% and fully fund the school's requested increase. So they're in a much different situation than we are.
We're not far behind.
Well, they just don't have to tap into the levy capacity that we would have to. I mean, we're talking tapping into almost $1 million in excess levy. And they have commercial revenues, so it doesn't have as big of an impact because their new growth numbers are so high.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
sorry to end on a depressing
Woo.
note, but yeah, I know, I'm just the bearer of bad news over here. But
And we just had a assessment. All of our property values went up.
and I imagine for a bit they may continue to do so. There's not a lot of housing stock out there, so that's driving prices higher. You know, interest rates are high right now, so, you know, that's keeping a lot of people from buying, but it's not
It's not a good place.
there's no magic
We've been
bullet.
through this before.
We have,
We will get through it. We just complain a lot.
yeah. But it's going to be tough, and it's going to come down to the voters. And so what I've said in pretty much every meeting that I've had the opportunity to sit in is that I just encourage every voter to come out to town meeting and make your voice heard. You know, we want to support the schools, we want to support our students, but we also don't want to cause, you know, a significant burden on the residents that are outpacing them. So it really comes down to the residents and the community and what they feel that they can afford.
When is town meeting?
May 1st.
Okay.
Given where we are there any potential votes that you would reconsider, that you supported, you know, in February, that you might not support May 1?
What kind of votes? Oh, you mean up for capital? The one thing I think we're doing that is very helpful to the schools is funding their capital needs. Because particularly with buildings, if you don't keep up with building maintenance, you only kick the can down the road and cause a larger, more expensive problem later on.
That's true.
I think because we have the free cash to do it this year, it makes sense to fund the capital fully, particularly because I don't think we can fund the operating assessment fully. So at least we show that good faith effort that, listen, where we have the funds, we are trying to give you everything we can and be as supportive as possible.
How's Carol taking all this?
I think it's been stressful for everybody. You know, Carol, Nancy, me. It's not been very easy. But we're all trying to work together and just do the best we can. But yeah, town meeting, BMS, May 1st, 7:30.
I've got a reserved seat.
Be there.
You'll be
And
knitting.
perhaps, Eloise, this is a good plug for if you haven't registered to vote, what can they do?
Yeah, what's that?
What's the deadline?
They can, there's hundreds of ways that it used to be you had to come to the office, but now you can just go on the Secretary of State's office and you can register that way. You can register when you renew, you're now automatically registered when you renew at the registry.
Or if you get a new driver's license or something.
Yep, and the forms, I keep the forms outside my office 24/7, year-round.
Perfect.
Okay.
They can call me, I will send out a form. If I get a census back and they write it in, I can't use that, but that tells me, oh, send them a form.
Cool.
And we will have open voter registration 10 days before May 1. So I think it's like maybe April 25.
That's when it closes.
I've got the stuff in my office.
10, but about 10. So don't wait until, you know,
May 1.
April 31st. There is no April 31st. Don't wait until May 1st.
Correct.
Just an FYI, Walter Pickford and I took a hike on that land that we just bought off Carter Street.
Oh, back here, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of nice land there. That was a good purchase, though.
The Horseshoe Pond.
No.
No, in Carter Street.
No, 72.
Oh, this is the one they're proposing to purchase?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
That's a good deal.
Beautiful land.
Absolutely.
It's a good deal.
8.5 acres with a house.
Yeah,
It's a great deal.
it's a nice land. You can do a lot of it. And the house looks in good shape, though.
And I believe they're proposing to put 6.5 in the conservation restriction and 2 for the house.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
We walked all the way to the powder house.
Ah,
Oh, nice.
Such a nice place. We should do something with that and open up, let public go for picnics there. People walk and have fun.
yeah. I don't know if you can get there without crossing private land, though.
You're right. Now we own the land from the other side.
There you go.
The other side, but there's still a strip in between.
Yeah.
Gotta get an easement.
That little bungalow sold
Anyway.
for like
Well, I think we
$103,000
need,
in
what I'd like to
2008.
see up there, maybe not
With the
next
other
year,
half of
but
that
at some
Cumberland
point,
land, like
is
9
put up a
acres.
well up at the top. That way it provide water right in the center of town.
Okay.
You know, 50
Yeah.
years from now, that's what
Right.
they'll need.
Eloise, do we need to vote to approve these minutes, or do we need to vote to approve the other minutes from last time?
Did you put that on the agenda?
Check
Of
for
course
you.
I did.
Well, then you keep them, and then the next time we meet, which you're gonna tell me shortly,
Okay.
we can approve them then.
Do we have, are we done with you for now?
Technically, you are done. So you've authorized everything for town meeting. You've taken your votes on capital as well as CPA. You're done with me at least. You may have other matters you wish to discuss. But
Usually we meet with Board of Selectmen and
okay.
quote unquote turn this in, review it with them.
Gotcha.
But we're so late this year, and I know that their process is still convoluted and dealing with stuff. I don't know that we need to meet with them unless they need us to meet with them.
Let me ask them, their meeting tonight, how
Okay.
they'd like to handle that. I did put a warrant together that included everything you had voted on with a question mark next to the fire truck. So they've seen the shell of what it is. But let me ask them tonight if their next meeting is going to be April 3rd. And they're meeting in person. So let me
Well,
ask
they
if
have
they
to.
would like you
Yeah.
to come on the 3rd.
Okay. So then, Eloise, for our next meeting, let's wait.
Yeah.
I will email you after the board meeting tonight.
Okay. And then potentially, I'm thinking maybe if we're needed, we can have a little meeting before town meeting, May 1st.
Yeah.
You'll be busy, won't you?
I will be
You'll be busy.
preoccupied,
Okay.
eating bonbons or something,
I know. Just sitting back in your chair knitting. I mean,
trying to collect my thoughts.
Just thinking, people might get really mad at us. We just approved a new fire truck, and yes,
And
we're
the taxes
increasing
are
the
going up.
taxes.
I mean, it would be great if
Yeah.
we could explain to people that it's two different funding sources, and no
Yeah.
matter what we do or do not spend on a fire truck, it does not impact
Impact,
that
yeah.
tax rate at all.
Right.
And so
And we've funded everything that the school has asked for from the capital side, and actually more because you added the walkway back in.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I think you've tried to be very generous on the capital side.
Well, we
Yeah,
try to
but
be
the-
proactive. I mean, if you say no, and you know it's a tripping hazard, and then you have old people like me walking, I mean, it might make a great video,
You don't have to be old, Eloise. I'm very clumsy. I could trip in it too.
but, it's a security thing,
Sure.
and it will affect your insurance.
Right.
yeah.
But I do think that those capital items are very important.
Will capital go before school in the warrant, or does school go before capital?
Good question. Let me check. I think school goes before capital. Hold on.
Typically, school has not been separated from FinCom.
So the budget goes, first you have the operating budget, then you have the capital budget.
Okay.
So technically, if the school budget, operating
Goes
budget
first.
will go first. Yep.
Okay.
And you will go next.
All right.
Okay,
So
so
if they make me speak, I'll try to explain that it's from a
Yeah.
separate thing.
I think you will be speaking.
you
Perhaps.
suddenly find yourself
2 years
in
ago, I did a
Florida.
horrid job, so last year they didn't let me.
They didn't let you?
They just didn't.
Who
mention it.
spoke?
FinCom did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to help too. Whatever's
No.
easiest
It's
for
just-
everybody. You know?
Just thought
Well,
it
I
was
mean,
funny.
why drag it out if there are no questions?
True.
Yeah.
Usually at the point of town meeting, many, not all, but many know how they want to vote
Yeah.
on stuff.
Sure.
Yeah. Do we have controversial items on the warrant? Things that appear that they might be controversial?
Besides the budget?
Besides the budget?
Yeah.
Besides the big thing that is what we vote on?
I don't really
No? Yeah.
think so. I went through I had an opportunity to meet with the moderator last week, and we went through the warrant. Nothing seemed too out of the ordinary to him.
You could put a plug in at the meeting tonight that people should seek nomination papers if they're interested in running.
Okay.
And it has to be in by, I believe it's Tuesday, April 11th.
What do we have open? What are people running for?
Moderator, town clerk, selectman, assessor, trustee of trust funds, planning board, cemetery.
Oh my God.
Is that all open spots? Like Barry's not going to be moderator anymore, or Barry's going to run against somebody?
I
Okay.
don't know.
Oh, okay. I see. That's what
The
I was
only
asking.
one I've received their nomination, and they have the correct number, is Scott Hopkins.
For select board?
He doesn't want to be anymore? Or?
Yeah, he
No, he's-
submitted his papers.
Oh, he
Why,
was-
do you
oh, yeah,
want to
yeah,
sign
okay.
my papers?
Are you going to run for select board? Or are you
No,
going
I've
to?
been a selectman.
Yeah.
Why would I want to do it?
I
again?
don't know why.
Why do you want to torture yourself with that?
Okay.
All right.
Any other questions, concerns?
No,
Thoughts?
when she sends us, then we'll determine our next meeting.
Yep. Yep. Potentially April 3rd.
And I'm not giving a town administrator report tonight because we're trying to keep the meeting a little bit of a short one because we've had very long ones, but the board members are, so I just asked Peg when she gives her report if she'll mention the nomination papers due April 11th. So
Okay.
we'll get that out there.
And they can also say, dog licenses are due now.
Oh, and dog licenses, yes.
Yeah, we got ours.
I know.
My wife showed
When's
up.
the,
Anna
when's the
didn't.
deadline for the dog licenses?
I don't have dogs.
I believe fines kick in, May 1?
Do we have, and I am not asking for myself, I swear, really, it's for a friend. No, I swear. Do we have, like, kennel licenses? Like, do we have a limit on the number of dogs people can have?
4 or under is $30. Under 10 is $40.
Okay.
Over 10 is $50. And you have to have a kennel inspection, so you'd have to see the animal control officer, Helen Roach.
Yep,
So
over
when
10.
you hit 4, you become a
If
kennel.
you have any kennel licenses.
Okay. Okay. So when you hit 4, you become a kennel.
Not necessarily.
Oh, okay.
Some people don't want to be a kennel,
I wouldn't want to be a kennel.
but they have show dogs.
Hmm. Okay.
I think one dog is enough.
Oh my God.
Mm-mm.
I won't talk about it.
No.
You
You don't
can't
want
because
to know
dog
about
licenses
my
are due.
dogs.
Yeah. So I'm going to adjourn us at 6:08.